the World Matchplay, the 31st edition of the biggest tournament of the summer. It's almost here. Luke Humphries goes in as the pre-tournament favourite to win a fifth singles major in just 9 months. Will he be stopped?
It depends which Luke Humphries turns up. Because other than the World Cup triumph over the last 2 months, he's not been quite at his very best. Not that he's been poor or anything, but he's not been at that same level that he was at for the final few months of last year when he won those 4 singles majors, when he won the world title to become world number 1. And, even if we look, he only played one of the 2 days of the Players' Championships in Milton Keynes last week. But if we look at that day, he did win 3 matches, but they were all tight, 6-5, 6-5, 6-4. In 3 of the 4 matches, he was well below the level overall that we expect out of him. We expect a high 90s, low ton average from him, and those were more in the mid 90s. But on the other hand, he did find his best game when he needed it. A 12-darter in the decider to beat Connor Scott. From 0-4 down against Vincent van der Voort, throwing legs of 13, 14, 14, 15, 13, and 16 darts to come back and win that match 6-5. He was lifting his game and doing the right things at the right time, almost as if he was trying to put himself in trouble so that he could be prepared and so that he could get that experience of having to lift his game. I'm not saying that he was doing that, but it almost looked that way because of how he found ways to turn it on after getting himself in trouble. But there were other times where he didn't. In that match where he finally lost in the last 16 against an informed Cameron Menzies, against the one player that day that he really needed to be on his best, he wasn't. He didn't break in that match in the 6 legs. All 11 legs went with the throw. And in the middle 4 of those 6 attempts to break, he was nowhere near. He was left over a ton after 4 visits in all those legs. I mean, yeah, okay, he could have taken out a 104. He could have taken out a 130 if he was given a 5th chance. But that's leaving it all to do. And in none of those did he ever get that chance, because in all of them, Menzies took it out in his 5th visit. That's not what we expect against Luke Humphries. When he's playing at his best, sure, he's not going to break in 12 darts every single time, but he's not going to go 4 consecutive legs against the throw without even having a look, without even leaving himself right there on a double after 4 visits or missing a dart at double after it. And that's where Luke Humphries' game has been too often right now. It's why he lost to Barney in the first round in Leverkusen. And it's why he lost to Rob Cross. Yeah, he came back and made it tight, but he lost to Rob Cross in a poor performance in New York in the semifinals, going 5-0 down in that match. And he did not look his best in Poland in the World Series either. There are some questions right now about where Luke Humphries' game is. He's still one of the 2 or 3 best players in the world, but it's not a clear-cut, dominant Luke Humphries like it was last year, and it's going to need to be if he's going to win the World Matchplay. That said, he's been a player who now for 2 years has turned it on at the events that he wants to turn him on at. For a while, that was the Euro Tour when he won those 4 Euro Tours. At the end of last year, it became the majors. And this season has been all about getting ready for the World Matchplay. Part of that was lifting his game for the World Cup, where he won it with England. Part of that was also prioritizing the Premier League, where he made the final. We'll see which Luke Humphries it is. If it's the Luke Humphries that has been the most of the last 2 months, he's not winning the title. If it's the Luke Humphries at the end of last year, he is winning the title. More likely, it's going to be a Luke Humphries somewhere in between. And do I think he'll be stopped? Yes, we'll come on to by who later. But I think he's going to be playing more like that Luke Humphries that is a world champion than the Luke Humphries that has been eminently beatable for the last 2 months.
We shall see. Well, I just want to go back to that stat that we mentioned at the start. Luke Humphries going for his 5th singles major in just 9 months. And that's a rate of success that we've only really ever seen in the PDC from 2 players, Michael van Gerwen and Phil Taylor. And Luke Humphries already on 4 major titles, level with Adrian Lewis. He's a couple more wins behind Raymond van Barneveld. He's halfway to matching the likes of Gary Anderson and Peter Wright on 8. And to have done all that inside a year since he won his first major as well. And I go back to last year's World Matchplay 12 months ago now. Luke Humphries yet to win that first major title, but he was being touted quite often as the next in line, the next player to cross the market, and he very nearly did it in this tournament last year, getting to the semi-finals, pushing Johnny Clayton in that semi-final, the Ferret winning it 17-15 after trailing for a lot of that game. He was behind after all 4 of the intervals, but come back to win it. But he comes back to the Winter Gardens this year, Luke Humphries, as that top seed, the world number 1, with all that silverware in the trophy cabinet, as the tournament favourite, and for many people, the player to beat. But there is going to be a certain 17-year-old who I'm sure we're going to talk a bit more about throughout this show, Luke Littler, hot on his heels, and you think he'll be one of Luke Humphries' biggest threats on that opposite side of the draw. But that is despite being paired up with the world number 2, Michael van Gerwen, in the first round. Littler still the second favourite behind Humphries to complete another title-winning debut. But for Humphries, I don't want to look too far ahead for this question, because before that potential third major final between the two Lukes, they've both got to get through their side of the draw. And for Humphries, on paper, he's been given a kind of draw in round 1 against Ricardo Pietreczko. These averages via FEBS data on Twitter, the seasonal average for Pikachu so far in 2024, 89.33, which equates to 90th on the tour, and it is by far the lowest of the 32 players in this field. And don't forget, it was Pietreczko who had Humphries in a whole world of trouble at Ali Pali in the third round, 3-1 up in sets, missed a dart at double 18 for a 2-0 lead in that 5th set before Humphries come back, and the rest, as they say, is history. So he's not going to take him lightly, but beyond that first round, there are going to be, you'd think, some more tricky hurdles to overcome, possible matchups with reigning major champions like Stephen Bunting, Dimitri van den Berg, Gerwyn Price potentially in the semi-finals. That could be another blockbuster encounter. But will he be stopped? He is the man to beat for me. But like you said, I think we have to wait till the end of the show to get our predictions on who we think is going to win this title.